Hey guys, welcome back to Adventurecruiser. I am Matt, and I want to talk about a couple of pitfalls of buying a used radio. As you can see before me, I have two radios. Both are APX 6000s. This is a 6000 VHF. This is a 6000 XE UHF 2, so high band UHF. And when I first got into this hobby, I started looking on eBay trying to understand what radios were available and what the different terms meant. And one of the terms that I saw in advertisements regularly was has tags or has matching tags. And I didn't know what that meant. And I kind of want to share that with you, and maybe this will help you understand it. So when we say a radio has matching tags, what they mean is that the Flashport code, remember the Flashport code from the other video? I'm not going to rehash all of that, but it is the DNA of the radio. It is the identity of what is inside, whether or not it has Bluetooth, whether or not it has different encryption algorithms, what specific band it is, whether it's an XE or a non-XE. All of that is contained within the flash code. Now, this specific radio has great tags. The tags are nicely weathered, meaning that they're probably original. That's a good thing. It has the UL listing since it's an XE. That's a good thing. It has a UL tag on the side. That's also a really good thing. And it has tags on both sides. Now, that tells me this radio is probably legitimate, but then there's something else that's not so great with it. When you power a radio on and you tap the bottom button a bunch of times, it puts it into service mode. And the service mode will spit out the Flashport code. Now, the Flashport code is also accessible via CPS, the programming software. But in this specific case, check this out. The tag on the back says it's this guy, and the radio says it's this guy. That's interesting. Well, there are two reasons for that potentially happening. Two that I can think of, at least. There may be more. One is somebody who bought the radio decided that they wanted to add Bluetooth or whatever feature to it, maybe an additional encryption algorithm. So they sent it back to Motorola. Motorola said, no problem, sold them the feature, and then loaded it into the radio. And the sticker that used to be on here saying, I've been flashed, and not in the fun way, came off because they didn't care about it. Who would? It's a firefighter's radio, I'm guessing, maybe a police radio. And so that is one reason for why there could be mismatching Flashport codes. A very legitimate addition to the radio, and the update sticker got lost. Okay, that can happen. Then there's the other way, and that is through an illegitimate piece of software called Depot. Now, Depot means two things. One, it means the warehouse or the shop where Motorola fixes, tunes, aligns, repairs their radios for you. And the second is a stolen piece of software that is floating around the internet, and it enables people who aren't authorized to add features to these radios. I'm not going to tell you how to do it because that's not the point of this video, nor do I want to tell you how to do it, nor do I know how to do it. But the point is that these radios have a lot of features built into them that may or may not be enabled from the factory, and people have found ways of cracking those codes and adding those features without Motorola's receiving any payment for them. That is the more likely scenario, especially on a radio that doesn't have a tag at all. So let's talk about a radio without a tag. Well, this could mean a couple of different things. The most legitimate reason for not having a tag that I can think of is if these battery tabs here broke off and somebody purchased a new chassis, which are legitimately available through reputable sources, and they swapped all of their electronics from this broken chassis to a new chassis and didn't have the ability to put a new tag on it because they're not Motorola, and that's a legitimate radio still. But more often than not, these are Frankenstein radios made from pieces that people have acquired over the years and hodgepodge together. So when you see something without a tag, instantly it throws up a red flag. Now, does it mean it's a bad radio? Well, not necessarily, but it could be. And that depends on what you're doing with it. If you're a public safety, a volunteer firefighter, police officer, anything like that, don't even consider one of these, please. You have no idea where it's been or who monkeyed with it, and it may let you down at the worst possible moment, and your life's not worth that. However, if you're a ham radio operator or an aficionado like me, and you're willing to take some chances, sure, why not? Now, I've been told that if a radio doesn't have a tag on it, or it doesn't have a legitimate serial number, which we'll talk about in a minute, that Motorola won't service it. Well, this is already nearing end of life. The APX 7000s are end of life, so they're not going to service it anyways. So with a 7000, it doesn't matter if it has a tag or not, if you are not public safety. If you're ham or an aficionado or just a collector, these are totally fine. But it's important to know that just because this was put together from legitimate Motorola parts doesn't mean that it is operating like a legitimate Motorola radio. What do I mean by that? I mean, it may not be tuned and aligned appropriately. Meaning if I'm transmitting, or I think I'm transmitting on 146.000, but the radio is actually transmitting on 146.100, there is a mismatch in the transmission versus what it thinks it's transmitting, and it needs to be realigned. The best way to ensure that you have a working radio is to have it tested on an Aeroflex or a GE Motorola-based testing device. You can do it on a spectrum analyzer if you know what you're doing, but that's a little bit more complicated. If you put this onto an Aeroflex, or sorry, a GE, Motorola makes a specific one with GE, it tests all the boards as well. Now, if it passes all those, hey, guess what? You might have just won the lottery, okay? You got a great radio. Chances are, though, you're gonna have some issues with these. When these are put together with hodgepodge parts, in many cases, somebody needs to have that illegitimate piece of software to enable the features and to tell it to work together. That brings up some really tricky legal gray areas when radios are no longer supported, but it's really a bad deal when radios are supported. So I just want to make you aware of what could be taking place. I'm not telling you to do it or how to do it. Let's be clear. But if you see a radio that doesn't have tags, this one says APX 6000R. Well, I think R means the rugged version. At least it does on my XTS 5000. But I've never seen a 6000 rugged, so somebody replaced this grill on the speaker. It's easy to do, 2 screws. Somebody probably also put a faceplate on this one and a keypad and did all that. Does it mean it's a bad radio? No, but I'm not going to trust my life to it. By turning it on and pressing the bottom button, I got this as the flash code. I haven't plugged this into Acredam, but I could. One of the things that would stand out as a red flag to me is if this no-tag radio had absolutely every feature enabled. It had all 5 algorithms for encryption. It had Bluetooth enabled. It had, sync cleaning enabled and dishwashing and folding your laundry enabled. That would tell me that somebody probably monkeyed with it and did something that they weren't supposed to. And I would be a little bit more wary of that one than I am this one. Other things to look for when you're buying a used radio are, do the wear patterns on the radio match? This is a XE version radio, and it has significant wear, but it has wear in places that you would expect there to be wear. And the wear is consistent across the radio. So this, along with a tag that looks very authentic, lends me to believe that this is not a parts radio and that this is a legitimate sale of a used radio. This one, no dust, no wear, a little bit there. I'm inclined to believe that this radio was put together from parts and that they recased it. Now, let's talk about another one. And I'm going to use the wrong type of sticky, but oftentimes you'll see a listing where there's a clear piece of plastic over the screen. And the idea is to signify that it's a brand new radio and all this. Well, no, that means it's been recased. Maybe it just has a new case on it. It's not a new radio necessarily. It could be. But you can buy a new case for, $100 or $200. I don't know. There are a lot of places online you can legitimately buy them that are genuine Motorola cases. So if you have an old radio, yeah, you can put a new case on it. But to put a piece of plastic over there to show that it's new old stock, that could be deceptive advertising. Not saying it is, but it could be, so be aware. If the price is like half of what another radio would be, it could be a scam. Yes, I have been taken by scams on OfferUp, and I knew better, but it was worth the risk, and I lost the money. That was fun. If the radio says it's UHF, but it comes with a VHF antenna, Well, that doesn't really mean it's the end of the world, but it tells you that somebody monkeyed with it who doesn't know what they're doing. These are a lot of fun to play with, okay? As an aficionado, I love them. I think that the noise canceling is great. I love radios of all types, shapes, sizes. This BKR 9000 is the one that I'm carrying more often than not now. It does everything I want. But there's still a soft spot in my heart for these guys. They're fun, they're cool. There's some, I don't know, nostalgia to a radio that is very commonly in public safety service. The fire radio I used to carry when I was a firefighter was a very, very, very basic radio, and I would have loved to have one of these. So I get the draw. I'm an aficionado. I find these fascinating. But be careful what you're buying, and be careful how you use it, because you really cannot tell the history of a radio unless you're buying it from somebody you know and trust. So if your life depends on it, buy from a trustworthy source. That's all I got for you today, guys. Take care.